What's going on, everybody? Hope you are having a good week so far. Podcast time. Grahame Farmer is the runner of Data Transmission. Data Transmission over the years has been a very influential platform for pushing new artists. He's literally, or the platform itself has been a part of many artists' starts and career beginnings. He does a lot. He is constantly streaming on Twitch 3 days a week. He has multiple SoundCloud platforms. He has a Discord. He has an online magazine. He does absolutely everything in terms of giving back to the community and growing communities and helping artists to grow. He also really helps with social media advice for artists and for new people coming into the industry, which can also be translated to pretty much any industry, if I'm honest. I'm going to stop talking and let you guys do the listening. Without further ado, Grahame Farmer for Data Transmission. Grahame Farmer, what's cooking, man?
How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
Yeah, good. We just yesterday we celebrated 15 years of Data Transmission.
Damn! Congrats.
Thank you.
How does that feel?
Amazing, honestly. I put a post out yesterday, sort of talking about it a little bit, and like we've done. Just when you started thinking about all the things we did, I did a live stream yesterday on Twitch, and just about 15 years of DT and 15. I think I've tried to find 15 things that I'd really kind of memorial points of the 15 years.
What were they?
Oh, like I've got a whole document. Like I started writing it yesterday morning because I start work at 4:30 every morning, and I started writing it. And
why do you start so early?
Because because it's really quiet.
Yeah.
And so I get up and I just go hard till either one of two things. Either it gets to 10 to 7, I have to get my daughter ready for school.
Yeah.
Or it gets to about 6 o'clock-ish and then I go for a run with my friend because again, we both go because we've got kids and and I find that a nice little break that we can do a few hours and just you don't get anyone beeping you. I literally don't switch my email on either. I don't do anything that's inbound. I do everything that, like I go to bed the night before and decide what I'm going to do in that 2 hours. And I literally tell myself before I go to bed, you are going to do this when you wake up. So that when you wake up, your brain goes, I'm doing this, let's go.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that for?
4 years.
What was the change? Like what made you want to do that?
So do you know, I got to about 38. I'm 43 now, so maybe 5 years. Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm 44 this year, so maybe 6 years. I've been doing it a long time. I got to 38 and I just wanted to get to a new place in the industry.
Yeah.
I thought I did. I thought I wanted to get to a new place in the industry and be a bit more respected and I would just change loads of stuff, and some of it was less partying, some of it was getting healthier, and I started running.
Yeah.
Some of it was like just working it harder and just working a bit. I thought smarter, but it wasn't then. It is a much smarter now. Like I've streamlined everything. I'm really focused on what we're trying to do. And I thought definitely back then it was trying to get somewhere more in the industry, but then I thought also, I always feel like there's a little inner circle of the industry, and I always feel like I want to be in that I wanted to be in that inner circle. No, not so fast. I'm more happy with the community around us than that we've built since then than proving to anyone anything really.
It's really interesting when you're in that situation in your life where you feel like you want to be part of something and then you realize the grass isn't greener.
Yeah, I don't think I even made it in. I've never made it. I don't think I've ever made it in there. But I just think.
But I think I don't disagree and I don't agree with you, because I think it's all from your own perspective.
Yeah.
Whereas like I feel exactly the same about my career, but from an outsider's point of view, they will look at my career and go, no, you're in that circle.
Yeah.
And I think that's the really interesting thing about how we kind of go internal in ourselves and not necessarily look at where we're actually at comparison to where we were at 10 years ago, 20 years ago, however long ago you've been doing it. And I think it's just a really interesting kind of perspective that majority of people in life, I don't think it's just music industry, I think it's life, but especially in the creative kind of world have. And I want, do you have any reason why that is?
I think, do you know, because you go to the conferences and you know what the inner circle of dance music looks like. It's a few certain people, and you think maybe if I'm in there, maybe it'll open up some more career prospects. It will open up certain things. The fact of the matter is, you open up your own career prospects. You create your own community around you.
Yeah.
And you find you end up serving that community, and then that grows that community, and it just gets bigger and bigger, and you essentially become the middle of the circle.
Totally.
By being the best person you can be and being the best individual you can be, and serving the community that you build to the best of your ability.
Totally agree. I guess my question to you is, if you were a person in the inner circle, what you class as the inner circle, where would you see yourself? Like, where would that be? How would you be in the inner circle?
I don't know. I don't know now. I don't think I don't know. Maybe you'd be more well off because you'd get better opportunities. Maybe you would be, I don't know. I think all the time it'd be more respected. And I think, like, just yesterday's celebrating 15 years, I had so many lovely messages, like so many lovely voice notes and emails from some really, really established artists and people in the industry that have been in this space with us and been on, we've helped, or just people I've kind of given life advice to, or like we've had people that are interns for us in the early days that are now like managing major artists, and running massive shows, and like they were all started as interns for us, it's like weird. So you feel respected then, and you think, well, it was really lovely, to be honest,
Do you set goals?
Yeah.
And do you evaluate those goals throughout the year?
Yeah. So I have the moonshot. Which
Explain
is
that. Explain that.
The moonshot is you shoot to the moon.
Yeah. Okay.
And because that's a long way.
Yeah.
And if you miss it, then you kind of fall in the stars,
Yeah.
Which is still pretty good,
Yeah.
And the moonshot is always the kind of, I would love to just get to a place where we have enough audience that we say this artist is great or this track is great. You should go and listen to it, and it just goes mental.
Do you think anyone has that nowadays?
I think there's some people that do. I think there's certain channels in certain genres that definitely have a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Whether it's the all arcing kind of, it just makes it a number. I think I'm not that bothered about number ones. I just kind of, it's nice to kind of get an artist, that go on that journey with an artist and go and say, and believe in them, because that's what I do. I definitely do that. I believe in people, and I believe in their music, and I believe in, from very, very early into that, like from finding them. I spend a lot of time digging for small artists, and I've been on journeys with people, and then they've stopped because they just run out of steam, or
Yeah.
and I've seen people go to the next level. So you see a lot over 15 years, you know, well, even further, 20 years of, because obviously 10 mils before that was a good period, you know?
Yeah.
So it's nice watching that journey. It's nice being part of that, being someone's journey. And that's the kind of bit I love, you know, finding that person. Because I really think that you see it in music when people are talking about new talent, and the whole new talent word is so large. I feel like where I think of new talent is they've probably got they're doing some music that's kind of, they've built some little bit consistency in music, and that's really new talent, because it's starting to, but then you see like the other end of new talent, Ibiza's new talent, and that's their ability to sell out, a summer series.
Yeah.
If you think Michael Bibby was last summer's or Patrick Topping was last summer's new talent of Ibiza, because he's sold out every week. There's a great scope between what people new talent is, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree, because there's always the awards, isn't there, to like around this time of year, and it's like best newcomer, and then the best newcomer has been around for 15 years, kind of hashing away.
Yeah,
which is always really interesting, because it's like, oh, you've been doing it for 15 years, and now we can give you the recognition that you've had like one record, or you've started a record label, or you've done a brand or something that's given you that kind of recognition to the industry. It's a very interesting industry to start out and be part of. How I want to talk about, like, did it ever start from you wanting to be an artist at any point?
Do you know what? I loved DJ. I do love DJing.
Yeah.
I do love playing records. When I worked at Turn Mills, I played every room in that club.
Yeah.
And I would be in there after work playing in the main room to the cleaner. Just because I wanted to play on a big system, and because we could, like, we finished work on a Friday at 5 o'clock or whatever, and the club didn't open till 10, so there was and the cleaners were in there wiping the floor, and then there was me bashing out the tracks, you know, and mixing on the big system. It was lovely, you know. And I did do the whole DJing thing for around London for a bit. In those period of time, that's like mid 2000s, before early 2000s, really.
Yeah.
And then I did make some. Because I was traveling into London, because I live in Milton Keynes, and I was traveling to London on the train. I was making record, like, kind of in reason on the train, making tracks, and never really. When that time I was with someone, and they were really not great at being positive.
Yeah.
And really just, like, I was told that I didn't have a voice for a podcast and never should speak on anything, never put my face in anything, because I was not that good looking, and never speak on anything, never be on radio, because you just don't have the voice for radio.
Sounds like a super positive person to have around.
So would never have done this, dude. Never. Like definitely wouldn't be streaming on what I'm doing now. Streaming, nearly 1,000 hours of streaming on Twitch, and would never have done that.
Yeah.
So, and then that obviously negativity just reels off into being a DJ, making records, but I was working in the industry, and I loved working in this industry, and I loved kind of the party of the industry, and the kind of mix of being party, but also working and earning from it. And then when that club closed, it was like, right, you're thrown into running a company, and kind of bundled through running a company. Like I said yesterday on my stream yesterday, like 15 ways how not to run a business and not to be part of an industry. Made every mistake possible. I talked about the dark years on my Twitch stream yesterday, and we had some really dark years where, like, I made some really bad mistakes, lost, a whole load of money.
Yeah.
It's so much so that I'm paying it back today because of the way it was in a separate company that liquidated, but just really, really, made business mistakes, and just.
Was that the app?
Huh?
Was that the app?
No, that wasn't me. That was still with data transmission. We basically tried to move into ticketing, and which was utterly foolish. We just tried to do parties and tried to move into ticketing, and it just was utterly foolish.
Yeah.
Like I'm still still paying 35 grand back just because of A, the company, I didn't understand the business. And the business end of what I wanted to do. I'm very creative, and I'm very good at being creative. But I'm like, if to try and do anything, understand the business of what you're trying to do first before you even try and do it. And because you make mistakes that you just spend, really screws things up for you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, man, I totally get it. I think, especially when you're dealing with creative stuff and also dealing with business, it completely changes your whole life. And I think that's why when you're in the creative arts, we take on so much passion with what we want to do.
Yeah.
And then moving that to business is so hard because in the business world, there is no emotions. Whereas in the creative world, it's all emotions.
Yes, 100%. Do you know, I was having this discussion with somebody yesterday, and it was like, whenever something doesn't, something in this industry stops, you stop doing something with somebody and you stop working with that person. And you just, like, I learned recently that when you're reading through an email that's just come from someone you're trying to end a situation with, read through it and go, right, well, that is all heat and all that is all basically emotion.
Yeah.
And really pull the facts out of what's happening. Yeah. Deal with the facts. And the facts are that one business doesn't want to work with another business. Yeah. And it's the same with DJs and the same with getting signed to record labels. It's the fact that you're a business as an artist, which really like takes the, in it for the love out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
And the whole creative, but at the end of the day, you're a business, and that record label that doesn't want to sign your record is because their business doesn't align with your business right now. But It's not right. It's not forever.
Yeah, totally.
It's right now, and you need to make your offer better, essentially. And that offer is better product, music, DJing skills, better, promotion, social media, output, content.
Yeah.
And then once your offer becomes better, then the businesses might align.
Totally, man. I want to go back to data transmission day one. There's like, I'm sure there's people on here that are listening that don't have a clue what data transmission is, and I'm sure there's people on here that do. So I'd really like to paint the picture of what data transmission started out to be and what data transmission is today, and kind of the journey behind that. Because I've seen it change and evolve over the years from years ago. And I know I've done stuff with you over the years, and it's been a pleasure to see the business evolve. So I'd love to kind of get from the get-go to where we're at today.
Yeah, so the start, basically, Turnmills nightclub was closing down, and data transmission was formed in Turnmills nightclub.
So Turnmills was in a famous London club for anybody that doesn't
famous know. London club that was around for 20 odd years, because it was one of the first clubs. It was their first London club to have a 24-hour drink license, which meant we could go all day, all night long, which was and you could get drunk all day, all night long, which is super fun when you're mid-20s,
Yeah.
And basically we programmed all of Friday nights, which is a gallery, and that was really famous. And it moved to Ministry, and was big trance, big artists, big kind of that space. On a Thursday night, we had a thing called Get Loaded, which was basically the Happy Mondays and Bez and all of the kind of Manchester sound scene, indie scene in Turnmills on a Thursday night. which was utterly raucous. My gosh, I'd come into work on a Friday and you'd have to wipe your desk. Well, our office was the green room essentially, so you'd have to wipe your desk clean. You would find Sean Ryder in the studio, because there was a studio in there. Go into the studio and you'd find Sean with some people in there that just hadn't been to sleep.
The good old days, eh?
Eye-opening. Say that. Eye-opening.
Yeah.
And it was crazy, that party. And then Saturday nights, we had one party called Smarty Party, which was, there's a guy called Trace Harris who's been around the scene for a long time. I'm sure you know him. His brother was actually the Milky Bar Kid, the original Milky Bar Kid.
Really?
So he'd always come into Turnmills, and when he was right with loads of chocolate for us because his brother got it for free from Nestle. And his party, he was one of the original kind of sell tickets. He'd book a couple of big headliners, but loads of basic ticket sellers, and it would be packed. So that one we always knew took care of itself. There was another party called Kinky Malinky, which is still going today.
Is it really?
And that was packed. Yeah, Paul Crane's party. And that was always packed. And we basically had the other Saturdays. So one of them was called Together, which was basically started on 2000 New Year's Eve. I wasn't working there, but I know it started, and it was the Chemical Brothers party. And it closed with basically the closing party. We had the Chemical Brothers and Fatboy Slim closing, which was they were always residents right at the very start of Turnmills, right in the very early 90s. And I was driving with Danny, and I said, why don't you try and get them? And he literally pulled the car over and rang Norman and said, do you want to do the closing party? And he said, only if and he said the Chems are doing it. He said, well, if they're doing it, I'm doing it, but I'm not headlining. And then he rang the Chems and said, Norman's doing it, do you want to do it? And Norman hadn't really agreed or anything paper, and they went, well, if Norman's doing it, we'll do it, but we're not headlining it. And it was like all happened in this lay-by in the car in about 30 seconds. It was crazy.
I love how different that is in the mutual respect for each other, because nowadays, if that was the case, it would be talked through management, and then the management would be like, well, my artist is headlining.
Yeah, this was like 2008, and because they're all friends, and it was all like, they'd all grown up like Danny had grown up with them, and everyone, it was all just friendly, you know. Yeah. So that was Together, and we had some amazing people play together. Like we had the first ever DJ show of Justice. Wow. And I think we paid them £200. We had the first ever show of Swedish House Mafia in Room 2, and we paid them very, very little. We had Eric Prydz's first show, and he had to come on a boat because he wouldn't fly back then. And that was after Call on Me. And we had like Josh Winks, Justin Robertson was a resident. It was I loved that party. It was every piece of music I loved right then. And we always had Fancy Dress, which again, as you can see from my disco shed, I love Fancy Dress. The fact that this drawer here is just full of wigs. And there's basically a chest down there that shows you how much Fancy Dress there is in this room. Let alone, and there was a party we did, and it was the Saturday. The next day was Mothering Sunday in the UK, so we did a party where you had to come dressed as your mum, which was hilarious. And we had Room 3. It was like techno in the main room, but in Room 3 we had Lethal Bizzle, who was just sort of starting to happen and grow, and he was just starting. He was in that point where he was a new artist
with his record Pow.
Yes, I think so.
So good.
Basically, me and some of us went to meet him at the door, all dressed as our mums, which was hysterical, to say the least. So, and that was Together. And basically, the long story short is basic data transmission was because we had all these flyers, and we were like, and the way back then to promote parties was put flyers in these flyer packs and then go and hand them out around record stores and cafes and outside other clubs. And if Fabric's line was busy, because Turnmills was right around the corner from Fabric, if Fabric's line was busy, go and fly the end of Fabric's line and tell people it was going to be too packed for them, and get people to walk from the end of Fabric's line down to Turnmills, like guerrilla stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Get chased by their bouncers, and all the fun stuff, basically.
Before
So
social media, put it that way.
way before social media. Way. We had MySpace, and there was
Yeah.
Resident Advisor, and that's about it. Oh, and Don't Stay In, for those that remember
Don't Stay In. Jesus. What happened to Don't Stay In?
Well, it was basically a photo sharing and commenting website for clubbing.
Oh.
So what happened to Don't Stay In is that another website came along that just took over the entire world.
Called Instagram and Facebook.
Called Facebook.
Yeah.
And killed it in seconds.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had all these flyers, and then basically we were like, well, why don't we make a magazine, and we'll just put the magazine in the flyer packs, and people can read all about 3 months worth of shows in one go. It will save on printing costs. We can put in there like little cut-outable drinks tokens, and we can do little interviews with people to help the show and make it really, really cool. Like, so we would do these data transmission magazines that were printed magazines, and I've got one somewhere. And Ed, who designed it, Ed Coward, who designed it, who's a genius designer, he's got one somewhere. And that was data transmission, and the holding page was just the website was just showing the printed magazine, because I designed that's what my job was at Terminals. It was designing all the websites. And then when Terminals closed, or 3 months, the Terminals closed in mid-March 2008. So in maybe October, November, we started talking about data transmission and what I was going to do after the club closed. And the guys that were running the club then became Southwest 4 and all the events around Lock and Load events and all those sort of people. And I then moved into running data transmission and taking it all online. And that's kind of where the 15 starts from, because it was before that. And I said on a tweet yesterday, it's actually 22 years old, because he was doing it a long time before that. But the online was 15 years ago. And then basically we had a website where, like I said, there was Resident Advisor. There may have been Fact, I can't remember. DJ Mag and Mix Mag were just print magazines. So, and their websites were just, here's the front of our magazine.
Yeah.
So we had a website where it was like, we want to write about all the music that Resident Advisor doesn't touch.
Yeah. Which was a lot.
Which was drum and bass and electro and electro clash and piano house and big kind of cheesy tracks that we adore still, and just be in a space where they're not, basically, because there was a bit of space, and there was a load of rivalry around sales. I remember at the time, and it was a fun time, The rivalry may have been in each other's heads again, but I don't know.
What do you mean rivalry between
two companies? Because basically we're kind of applying for people's advertising revenues, and we had a big old database from Terminals which we were using, which was good. They then went into the ticketing hard.
Yeah, really hard.
And what they do today is amazing. Like, I know they get slammed a lot of the time, but the content they produce today, and that's where I really feel I sit, is making content above everything else. The content they make today, hats off to them. Some of it's amazing.
Yeah, they've Resident Advisor over the years have gone, for me, like personally, and this is just my personal opinion, they've gone in and out of making some really amazing stuff. And maybe around the 2012 to 2015 mark, where they were making really interesting videos and following artists around. They made some like really iconic videos that changed my career.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't tend to look at what everyone's doing these days, because I'm really focused on what we're doing. And I spend most of my time doing what we're doing, which is great. And I definitely tried to be other people along the way. Like totally. I tried to be RA, tried to be UKF, tried to be Black, tried to be, streaming with like Boiler. I tried all of that, and you just fail because you're not yourself, and
you're just not doing it for the right reasons, right?
Yeah, right. And then data transmission, like I said, it was editorial, and we had a nice team, and then we grew really to a really big size, and then we had the dark period where we lost all the money. And it was basically back down to myself, and I just had a newborn baby, and it was me in a flat, and I nearly I had to ring my mum and say, can I have some money, please? Because I can't pay the rent. I can't feed my daughter. Literally, I remember one time just sat against the wall, like in a kind of holding my knees on the floor, crying because, you know, had so many people chasing me for money. Thought about kind of ending everything. Went down that road. Thankfully, there's a little girl that is the light of my life, really, you know. And she like just that's changed everything for me. I think. And then at that time, I started uploading tracks to SoundCloud.
Yeah.
And I started just uploading them.
So by this time, was Data Transmission yours, technically?
Yeah, it was mine.
Yeah.
It was just me. It was just me and just mine. It was just me. And all the start, I'd become the editor. I'd become the kind of content creator, which I should have done. Do you know what? I should have done it years before.
Yeah.
I should, but because you had that person slagging you off in the background, you can't do this, you can't do that. I should have just, if I'd have that, if I'd have done that a long time ago, I would, maybe things are different, maybe they wouldn't be. But I should have been editor a long time ago. Like, I know so, like, I don't like shouting about myself, but I do know so much music that it's ridiculous. Like whenever we're at an after party, my friends would go, "What's this track?" And they'd hum little bits of it, and I'd go on a computer and go, "Is this it?" And they'd go, "Holy fuck!" Like, oh, sorry, I can't swear.
No, you can swear. It's fine.
They'd go, "That's like I know so much music, and I should have been." And now I should have been editor. I should have just not paid that person's salary and not. And then you think about these things in the long term after, you know. So at that point, I then go, right, I'm going to start uploading to SoundCloud. I'm going to start putting tracks on there that I like. I'm going to start doing premieres. And really, probably one of the early people of doing the whole premiere thing. I definitely was one of the Data Transmission podcast is 15 years old this year. And it's one of the longest running series. Like I was looking back through it started with Busy P as the first episode. Jeez. We've had Carl Cox on there. We had Moby on there. We had David Holmes do like a cinema one. We had Disclosure before they were big and they did a Vinyl Only set. We had Kinks done 2 because the first one, it was really before he was getting big and he had to go and sit outside the internet cafe, remember those, and basically borrow internet from the internet cafe so he could deliver his mix.
Internet cafes were the worst.
And then he basically sat because it was shut, and he managed to get on the Wi-Fi or whatever the Wi-Fi was back then, and just try and upload it. And it was apparently so slow. And he was sat in because he was sat in the snow, basically uploading this mix for us. It's incredible, basically. Then he did the 303 mix, which is one of my favorite all-time mixes. So that was always happening. The podcast was always happening. Like. And I started uploading tracks. I was one of the only people to kind of monetize premieres, and I had loads of people messaging me going, "You can't do this, you can't do that," and now it's the norm. And I told some of my friends that have other blogs, and they were like, "Okay, I'm going to start doing that," and now it's become the norm. And and it helps these blogs and helps these websites stay afloat. And I see it online, people slagging it off, and it's like, well, you're asking to use their audience, and you're asking to use an audience they've been building for years, and the whole influencer thing, and it's like basically we're audio influencers and listenable influencers, you know.
It's really interesting that people don't look at it like that, and it's weird. I can do it for myself. Like during coming out of COVID, I had Patreon hit me up, and they were like, "Can you start? Do you want to start a Patreon? Like we'll work with you and like we can do that." And I was like, "Yeah, just feels weird asking people for money." Like
it does.
It feels weird, and it goes back to that business and artist kind of thing. It's like putting 2 and 2 together. But like, I don't think people realize that we're paying for everything all the time. We're paying for ads. We're paying for all of that, and there's no difference between buying an ad or buying a premiere or something like that. Yeah. Like I'm pretty sure you can buy a Mixmag front cover if you really want one.
Of course you can.
And I know people that have. So I think like it's just what you have to ask yourself as a person, if you're going to these companies, is it worth it for me?
What is your goals?
Yeah. And
what are the goals of spending that money?
Exactly.
And are those goals is it going to deliver the results you want? And the same as anything, is that what's the return on investment?
Yeah.
What's the return on investment of spending 20, 30 quid on a Premiere against what's the return on investment of a mixed mag cover that's you maybe spend thousands?
Yeah.
The return on investment of the cover is you'll definitely get more gigs out of it, which then returns the investment.
Do you think it will now still?
Massively.
Really?
They're one of the biggest publications in the world for dance music. Whether people like it or love it, or same with DJ Mag, one of the, you from just being there for so long, it just people, like the same with data transmission, people find you over the years and then they become entrenched and love what you do, and then they fall out of love with you, and then they come back, and but just being there that long, just you build that kind of, firstly, community, but secondly, respect value, and authority, basically.
Totally. So I want to carry on with the story briefly. So you started.
Yeah, so we started uploading. I started uploading tracks. Started monetizing SoundCloud, and that really saved my life. Honest to God, like SoundCloud definitely saved my life.
Yeah. You've always been very heavy on SoundCloud.
Love it. I love the platform. Not so much like I love the platform. I literally, one of the first things I do is open SoundCloud every day.
Yeah.
I love listening to mixes on there. I love finding artists on there. As much as I really love Spotify as well, I really love SoundCloud. And we now have 7 channels doing different mute genres. We've done 130 million streams.
Wow.
Last year we did 20 million streams over the whole year across all channels. We have a radio station built on SoundCloud. We have, everything comes off of, all our labels are built from SoundCloud.
Yeah.
And I think there's one thing I've not unturned.
Yeah.
But I'm always happy to learn. Yeah, I love it. And then from that, from that really brought life back to everything.
Yeah.
At the same time, my little girl was growing up, and that taught me so much about just people. I remember going to BMC, Brighton Music Conference, and I remember sitting in a panel about women in music.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there, and I remember they were talking, someone who I can't remember who was talking, but I remember sitting there thinking, fuck me, I do all of these things. Like, I am terrible. I'm actually a terrible human being. I do all the things that they're talking about because I was brought up in an industry where it's acceptable. I've got a little girl, and that's not cool at all.
Yeah.
And I'm changing. I literally walked out of that conference panel and literally changed everything we do. From the artists we write about, to the content we make, to everything that I think about men and women, and it was eye-opening.
Yeah.
And I don't think if I had a daughter, that might not have happened. I think I'd have still been the same path, and I think that would have affected everything. Where we are now as a data transmission. I think I would have been in that horrible male place where you think you're the best, and you think there's no place for anybody else in this industry.
It's weird that.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Horrible, isn't it?
Where did that come from?
I had no idea. Generations above us. And I literally sat there and went, I'm all these things and I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I wish at the time I'd stood up and gone, I'm really sorry.
Yeah,
I'm really sorry, the industry. I've been all these things, and I'm going to change right now. And I did. Because of a certain little girl, and all the ones after, and every other person in this world, you just want to be a better person.
Definitely. That's the goal every day.
Yeah. So then I started my YouTube channel. Well, then at that time I started working with an artist called Ben Sterling.
Yeah.
He's from Milton Keynes. I'm from Milton Keynes, and I met him and his dad. And we just used to hang out. We'd come around my flat. We'd listen to music. He'd play tracks. We DJ. He played at some data transmission parties for a long time. I put some records out for him. I'd send his records to people, and I sent about 5 tracks to Jamie Jones because I'd known Jamie since Snow Bombing 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jamie picked up 5 records, and they played him all summer. And Ben's life changed instantly.
Yeah. I love Ben.
And became an artist. There was a really great. I got an EP signed to Josh Butler's label for him. Basically, Josh was playing in Milton Keynes, and then he was going to ministry afterwards. And I said Josh knew myself and Ben, and we'd been hanging out a little bit before. And I was like, why don't you go in the car with Josh from Milton Keynes to ministry and just hang out?
Yeah. Play
some records, hang out. And I remember the conversation. Ben went, can that happen? And I picked up the phone and went, let's see. Rang Josh and said, can it happen? And Josh was like, yeah, man, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Josh
is wicked as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's lovely. I love seeing, and I see he's just launched a new label. So that hats to him, man.
Yeah. He's living in New Zealand as well most of the time.
Oh yeah, I love that country.
Yeah.
And then that EP got signed, and then it all just started happening for Ben, and he went off on his way, and I'm like, when you see what stuff he's doing now, it's amazing. I love watching what he's doing, and it's just all the time I'm just so happy for what he's doing and what he got what I wanted to become, and it's amazing.
Yeah, because I've known Ben for quite a while as well, and was he working at Defected, or was he doing something at Defected?
No.
So he was always around the Defected guys when I met him, and I'm not too sure why. Probably just friends.
He wanted to be on Defected,
okay.
and we used to go to Defected Croatia together like me, him, his dad, and Shelley, my other half. And we'd always hang out. And I remember at Defected Croatia, there was someone that not turned up for a warm up, and I literally went, "Can Ben do it? Ben, you got a USB?" And they went, "Yeah, all right." And like I was that little person going, can this happen? Can this happen? Yeah. Can that happen? But from that process, after we separated, I was pissed off with myself for a long time after that process, because I was like, I've just let go a really good artist, and I've lost loads, and I didn't really make anything out of it, and I was lost loads out of it, and I suddenly realized I hadn't lost loads out of it. I'd actually learnt everything I put out there now in the world. Everything that goes on, I literally have learned how to get music signed for an artist, how to build an artist, how to grow it, how to grow what social media was working for artists, and literally out of that process, learn everything that I now put into a course.
Yeah,
and everything that I had. After that, I then started a one-to-one coaching series, and that I had 300 artists through that. I've now had nearly 100 artists through my course, which is all social media growth and getting music signed, and really narrowed down what I was doing with Ben, and it really taught me what I knew.
Yeah.
When you I didn't know I know that, or I did know I know that, but I'd just been doing it without thinking about it, A lot of the time it's just let's do and see what happens, and then and that's goes back to the kind of mistakes that I was talking about earlier, not knowing the business part of it before you do.
Totally.
It's the creative brain side going, well, let's just try it. And
mate, how many things do we all try on a yearly basis, and it just doesn't work? It's the same with this podcast, really. This podcast I always wanted to do it during COVID, the second month in COVID. I was like, well, I have time now, so let's try it. And we're many years into it, and just keeps going and going and going. But I've tried so many things that's just failed and just shouldn't have been done. But you have to do those things to get to the next thing.
100%.
So now Data Transmission's doing lots on SoundCloud still. What other sides of the business are you kind of working in? I know during COVID you went heavy on Twitch.
So from a Data Transmission point of view, we have Data Transmission, the main blog and magazine, and which is all still focused on premieres.
Is it still a magazine?
Yeah, it's still a website. I always think of it as a web. It's a website, and I always think of it as an online magazine. Everyone asks me what I do. I run an online magazine. I've always done that.
Okay.
Or I'm the T boy. Like my business card says Grahame Farmer T boy data transmission, and I've always been the T boy.
Yeah.
But if anyone asks me, because you get asked, what do you do? And you're like, well, I run an online magazine. I also data transmission as a radio station, which has 150 shows hosting hosting their own shows. We have 3 record labels. I have a course that helps artists. I'm a YouTuber, and I have my YouTube channel is now 36,000 followers big, and I want to hit 100,000 this year. And now I stream on Twitch, and because basically I got signed up by Twitch as a creator. Yeah. Similar to the Patreon thing, we got paid a whole stack of money. Yeah. Which I've never been done before. And after all those dark years, it was like someone wants to give me lots of money. Like it was literally like, like all the cows had come home to roost. You know, it allowed us to build this studio, which is hilarious that this is in my shed in the bottom of my garden, and was always the party shed where you'd kind of find all the reprobates at the end, you know, at the house parties, and that now has evolved into this wonderful streaming studio. And we have like stream decks and multiple cameras and
amazing.
And I stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on Twitch from 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
How long for?
For 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours a time.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah,
a lot of work. And what are you streaming? What's the content you're streaming?
So we've really refined it over the year, like because I've been doing it 2 years in May, and over those 2 years we've really like tested everything, refined everything, and now it's really focused. So every Monday is a demo session and a demo feedback session. Whether it's me and my assistant Loz has been making music for a long time. He's gone through different aliases. He's now Loz Secker, and he's had his first release as that artist on Toolroom, which came out last week. Cool. He's got other releases signed. He's got another one actually signed with them as well. So me and him basically just sit in here and we listen to demos that come straight from our Discord. We open a new thread in the Discord every week and say, drop them in, and we don't care what genre it is as long as it's dance music, and we'll just sit and listen to it and go, well, this is cool and this is not cool. We have a thing called the kick. Basically, at one point in the stream I was talking about what I like in dance music, and I'm such a fan of kick drums. Like it's everything is for me, like it has to pass the kind of in my brain a kick test. And we even on my little thing here, look, I'll show you, it does this, look. Thank you.
I can't hear it.
Did you not hear it?
No.
It's coming out the wrong thing. Anyway, it just says pass the kick test.
Okay.
And basically, I gave those parts away, and then someone made a track. In fact, no, we had a competition to make tracks on Twitch. And I was like, go and make one out of my YouTube videos or my Twitch streams, and hoping that everyone would go and watch loads of my videos and then find a good sound point. It would like push some of the viewers up and put more people on YouTube for me. And it worked because it worked, and people made some out of I was hoping the guests, but basically most people made stuff out of me. And then we had this track called the Kick Test, which was made by this guy called MXL, who's from Patrick Topping's end of the world, and it was he wants to get signed to Trick, and it's very that kind of sound. And we put it out as a free download, and it's had it and put it on Spotify, and it's had nearly 100,000 streams.
Amazing.
Just from my knowledge of making tracks do what I want them to do. Darius Sarosian found it and started playing it all summer in Ibiza last summer. So over the sound system, you hear me going past the kick test, booming out, which is absolutely hilarious.
That's funny.
And that's now part of the stream. Like, does it pass this test? And everyone kind of puts in the emotes in the chat that we've got kick test emotes, and that's part of the fun. So that's Mondays, basic demos, and it's either me and Loz, or we have loads of A&R labels coming on for A&Rs, and they'll listen to them, and if they like them, and we've had loads of tracks signed from those systems. Like,
that's amazing.
Yeah, we've signed over the last 2 years. I don't know how many tracks have been signed, or tracks that we've listened to as demos and given feedback, and then people have messaged us later going, I put it up on Instagram, and labels found it and loved it because of your feedback. One of the guys last night in my group call was on my course. We have a group call every Wednesday, 7 till 9, and where it's just course members. They can come as many times as they like, as many Wednesdays as like, but it's just basically time with me.
Yeah.
And on what we did an A&R for him, and I said, I absolutely love the track. And my literal response was, this could get signed to Toolroom or Kitball. And he put that up on Instagram and tagged me. And basically Kitball went, we'll sign this.
Yeah.
I will sign this. And that's coming out like next month, basically. That was in August last year. That's coming out next month. So we've helped sign loads of tracks, different size labels, different genre labels, and help people just find their sound. And the quality of what's in the Discord now has just evolved over those 2 years. You've watched people from literally, you're listening to a track and going, which bit have they done really well, first and foremost? That's always the first question me and Loz do. What's really cool?
Yeah.
And then what bits need work? And sometimes you're like, what bit's really cool? I like that sound.
Yeah.
But then over the time it's gone from, I just like that one little sound to, oh, they've really, like, they'll come back like months later and they'll be like, oh wow, this is actually cool. Yeah. This is actually sounding amazing now. Like, or not amazing, but it's sounding cool. And then it's like, and then they come back a few months later and it's, wow, they even changed their sound, but it sounds, the change of sound's been amazing, you know? And
the evolution of an artist is amazing.
Oh my God. And you see it in the rawest form because it's every Monday. And then on Wednesdays we do interviews, and I've interviewed some amazing people. And because I'm a partner on Twitch, which basically means I'm the top level of Twitch, and because I was brought on, we basically put on the front page of Twitch. Basically means when you go onto Twitch, there's a carousel of streamers at the top of the page, of the top of Twitch, and that we can be put up there. And because you put up there, you get thousands of people watching.
Yeah.
Right. We had 12,500 people watch me and John Newman, the singer. He was at home. I was in my shed. 12,000 people watched me in my shed talk to John Newman, which is utterly ridiculous and amazing still at the same time. So that was fun. And then Fridays, it's all about social media. And we're doing it, which we started. We did a few tests last year, but now it's like, that's where my passion is, my knowledge base is. So that's a thing we do every Friday. So, and then basically Fridays is either one or two things. It's either we do like reviews. So we basically look at an artist's social media channels and go, well, again, it's like the demo thing. Well, again, you're doing this really well and this works really well. And this piece of content's really good.
Yeah.
And look, you're getting some decent numbers on that. Maybe you should think about doing that some more, or maybe you should tweak this part of Instagram because you'll get more discoverability from using these tips better.
Totally.
And we do that every other Friday. And then the other opposite Fridays, basically we've started a thing where we basically look at other artists' social media. Again, it's a review, but we've been looking at really big artists and going, what are they doing across all of their channels? Is there anything we can learn that might help smaller artists? Obviously they've got teams and people and money and investment. So you can look at everything they're doing and going, whoa, that piece of content's really cool what they've done there. And that's definitely replicable to a smaller artist. Or none of it is. And holy moly,
you're all fucked.
When we get there, it's going to be fun. But when we get there, it's going to be fun, you know? And we've started going lower in the pecking order of like, what's the next level up of artists where you feel they're just starting to pop and then you can look at their content because it's really, really attainable because some of it is done from their house and at home and, you know, on the streets of where they live.
Yeah.
So that's really fun. And I was looking at, you know, when you go on YouTube, there's series of like producer series where it's like, make a track like Will Clarke.
Yeah.
Right. I was thinking, well, why don't I make a series on YouTube that's called Make a Social Media Strategy like
this person
Eats Everything.
Yeah.
Or Patrick Topping. Or so that's basically what we started.
That's awesome. I really like the idea of that. And I've noticed in the last year on your socials where you have been going hard on the social media.
Yes.
And going hard on the promotion and kind of helping artists out. Which is why I want to get into it a little bit more as well. Because I think this is where where data transmission is going as well, which is really, it's another evolution to what you guys have done over the years. But I guess, what is it about social media that you're like, this is the one?
Do you know, I think that you spend so much time making this music, on learning these skills to DJ, and you spend so much time doing that. And whenever you ask an artist or a DJ or a producer, what do you want to achieve? And they want that. A lot of the time, it's, I want people to hear my music. I want my music listened to, and I just want it heard.
Yeah.
Either by a label or or just people.
Yeah.
And I think that making content, and it's a thing I think about. I've got a video going out today. Basically, it's around the content gym, and I've started this idea of the content gym, where you see other producers online, and you see people talking about social media growth, and you see they're saying, well, you must do certain things per day. You must do 2 reels a day, otherwise you're just not going to grow. 4 TikToks a week, you're not going to grow.
Yeah. And
you see people talking about that, and your brain goes, holy moly, that's not happening.
Yeah.
No chance. I'm not even doing none a day. How can I go from none a day to 15 a week?
Yeah.
And your brain just goes, holy smokes, that's not possible, and then shuts down. And I think of it as the same as going to the actual gym, and it's the actual. You don't go to the actual gym and pick up the biggest weights. You don't get in a car and go and press the thing and go from 0 to 100. You have to build some reps. And I really feel like there's this content reps and your kind of content muscles. And it's a new idea I've been thinking about a lot over Christmas. And you have to build up to this. So you build up firstly the quality, but secondly the kind of, when you're making a record, you don't go from making nothing to a banger. Yeah. You build processes, and you build routines, and you build ways of doing things that make you quicker.
Yeah.
Your 100th record is made a lot faster probably than your first ever record, because you just fumble around and click buttons and don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah, totally.
You know what filter you want to put on that sound because you've done it and it works. And it's the same with making content. It's the same with social media, and it's the same with making content. You build up templates, and you build up ways of doing things, and you find little presets that you love, and that's how you get from making nothing to 15 a week or whatever we're doing now, which is, don't ever try and copy us, because whatever we're doing is, I think we probably make near 100 pieces of content a week.
Are you doing that for one platform, or where is that being distributed?
So we have 2 channels, obviously data transmission.
Yeah.
And data transmission and data transmission drum and bass, which my other half Shelley runs.
Yeah.
But also my Grahame Farmer channels. So we have, for me, Grahame Farmer, I think we put out 3 YouTube videos a week. We do 3 Twitch streams a week. My TikTok has 2 a day. My Instagram Reels can have 2 a day. My YouTube Shorts can have 3 a day. Facebook Reels can have 2 a day. But we've got ungodly amount of content. Yeah. And we've built up the reps.
Yeah.
I'm going back to the original question, why I think social media, because it's free.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay anything to get on it. You don't have to spend any money except time. And the same as when you're making a record, you buy Ableton or Logic, and maybe you can make records in them.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy plugins. You can make very good records out of
everything in there.
Everything in there.
Yeah.
It's essentially, and the same with social media. It's free. It's a free way for you to shout about your music and show off your music and your abilities and your skills and get it heard.
It's a kind of a conversation that a lot of artists don't like to have, really, because I know so many artists that say, I know I need to do social media, but I don't like it, so I don't want to do it.
Right.
I kind of want to get from you your points of why artists should be using social media. I understand the power of social media. Is unbelievable, the power of social media.
I think that the really, really good artists think about the music and the visual of every record they put out. There's a story behind why you're doing that track, why you work with that artist, and why you added this vocalist in, why you felt you needed it. And it's art, and it's the music is part of the art, and the social media part is finding a way to put a visual with that music so that people can hear it. It's a game, social media. It's a game of like, how many people can I get to listen to a track or a piece of content that it helps me build a community.
Yeah.
And that's the really good thing about social media, is you build communities, and then your community buys your records and comes to your gigs at the end of the day. And
totally.
It's a way, it's every time I hear that they need to do social media, but they don't, or don't like it, it's always like, well, do you not want people to hear your music? Do you want to spend all that time making it and then no one hears it? Which, if you do, that's also very cool. Like, if you want to just be that person that just sits and makes it, and it's just for you upload it to Spotify, then cool.
Yeah.
But don't moan when no one listens to it, because you've got a free marketing platform that you can learn to help everyone find that music.
Yeah. It is an interesting thing, because, like, let's say, for instance, for me, like, TikTok just doesn't appeal to me as a consumer. And it's more so for me is in my attitude behind it is, I know how powerful it is. I haven't given TikTok the time of day for me to go onto the platform. I use the platform to post, but I don't post regularly. I forget about it. It's just not part of my life, whereas Instagram and Twitter is.
Right.
But, like, I think the thing, I know I should be doing TikTok if I want to kind of be if I want to give myself the opportunity to reach out to a bigger audience. We recently just had Motrack on the podcast, and I've also Bad Boombox had him on the podcast, and Amy L on the podcast, and all these people came from TikTok.
Yeah,
and it was literally like there was nothing they were doing that was out of the ordinary. They just did something that at that moment, at that split second, changed their whole career.
Yeah, I think I always think with social media, do one really, really well and spend 80% of your time doing one really, really well and learning that platform and everything there is to do with that platform. Because once you do that, then you replicate content across other platforms, and those other platforms become a lot easier, because there's only little tweaks you have to do to content to make it fit onto other platforms.
Yeah.
I think this year, if you possibly haven't started on TikTok, and this year we're talking 2023, if you're listening to this in 2024 or whatever, this year 2023, I think you can maybe sidestep TikTok and maybe focus on YouTube and YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts is absolutely going to kill it this year.
Agreed.
And I think if you haven't started a TikTok, I would potentially film yourself making music, film yourself DJing. If you want to DJ more gigs, film yourself once a month somewhere DJing, whether it's in your studio, whether it's in the office, whether it's a pirate studios, and then spend some time cutting that up for YouTube Shorts once, and then use YouTube Shorts to drive everyone back to that main video. And you'll grow and you'll get more gigs. I think, and then you'll put that other content on Instagram Reels because you've made it. So you might as well use it across all the platforms.
Totally.
I really like what you're doing with your TikTok, where it's I do the same with my TikTok. where it is a lot of content. Obviously use it for this. I've seen your content on here was using it to promote your
podcast.
And I do the same. I have my TikTok basically is all of my interview content cut up, and I try a different strategy because I've got so much content. I have a different strategy for TikTok, which points to my interview channel on YouTube, and that helps that grow. And it's I'm not too fussed about the numbers, or I'm more interested in watching what happens with it. Because it's trying different content in a space and seeing if that content works.
That's literally for me at this moment in time in TikTok. I'm just at that point where I'm just experimenting with what works.
I think that definitely, like, so many people get stressed about numbers and numbers on everything. And you have to experiment loads to find which platform firstly works for you. Like I like going on Twitter to read stuff, but I'm terrible at Twitter, and I don't bother with it. I like making, like, I like being in front of camera. I don't like putting myself in front of camera. It scares the hell out of me every time I do it because I'm a 6'6" shy idiot. But
doing a good job, man. Doing a good job.
But I like the content it makes. It works for me.
Yeah.
And always when you think of numbers and what are you trying to achieve with the content? If you're trying to get as many people listening to the tracks as possible, then try and make those numbers better every time. 1% better every time, make the content 1% better and improve things. If you're like, for us, content is trying to do something different. And if we only get 200 people watch a piece of content, but it converts into what we're trying to achieve, then that's a win. So it doesn't matter how many people have watched it. It matters that we've achieved what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I also, to counter that, it's very easy for you and I to sit down and go, just try things, because we get views on certain things, and some people don't get anything.
No, I don't at all. I put a piece of content out. I've put up content this week, last week, where I've had 100 views. And I go, okay, well, why did I only get 100 views? Why did that happen? Was it the wrong time of day, or just honestly, was it a crap piece of content? Like, if I went past that, would I just swipe? Would I not understand what it was about? Was it too packed? Was it not have enough depth? Would I just swipe? And that's what you have to ask yourself. Like, you go on people, when I'm doing these things on a Friday, I'll go through content and go, well, I'd probably swipe with that because it's too cluttered. I can't see you. I can't see what's going on. And that's the other big one, is I don't want to put my face on content. So that's a really big one that is interesting. It's an interesting debate as well. Not for me, but from DJ point of view, you'll see DJs going, I don't want my face on the content. I won't put my face in content. And then to counter it, I go, well, don't you want to play gigs? And they're like, yeah, I want to play loads of gigs. I want to play all over the world. I want to tour like John Summit. And I'm like, but won't those people see you? Like, when you're playing that gig, won't they see you? And they're like, and you can see it. They go, oh yeah. So they're going to see your face, and they need to get to know your face. Because they build that connection with your face, and you've got a beautiful face, and everyone's got a beautiful face. So just own it.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is social media before social media. So, like, I know we had MySpace. MySpace was a different kind of part of social media from.
I loved MySpace.
Yeah, it was great, but like, it's very different to how it is now, right? But back then, the artist and the fan were very separated.
Yes.
And now I can literally go and DM Beyonce.
Yeah.
Like, whether she's going to respond is a different story. However, I can. The accessibility to artists now to anybody is unbelievable. And because of that, and because we've got generations now growing up with social media where we didn't grow up with social media, you literally have everybody that knows they have access to everybody. And by knowing they have access to everybody, they want to get to know people on another level, on another personal level. And I think that's the thing that's really helped me in social media, is that I have just embraced the community in that sense, and I respond to everybody. I reply to every comment on Instagram, try to do it on YouTube as well, mostly on Twitter. Like every video I get tagged in on Instagram, I respond. It is a full-time job, really. But by having the social media and keeping that up and never not doing what I should be doing on there has allowed me to kind of grow a career out of something that if I didn't do it, I probably wouldn't have a career.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree. I think like the word you said there is community, and I think I for the last few years I've been saying I want to build a data transmission community. I really want to build one. We didn't have one, and we have built one now. We've built a lovely community in our Discord. So much so that they all sent me cake this week. Like they actually got data transmission 15th birthday cake sent to my house.
That's amazing.
And it's like those little things. It's so like even in the shed, like we've got little things that have come from community members that are just sat around here. That there's stuff in here that's not on screen, that's just in here for the ambiance.
Yeah.
So that when you come in here, you go, oh, this is fun.
Yeah,
and it just sort of brightens your day. And sometimes I just come in here and switch it on and sit in here and work in here because it's just like, oh.
It's nice, yeah.
But the community part of everything on social media is the part that you have to build one person at a time.
Yeah.
And that one comment turns into 2 and turns into 5, turns into 10. And that's what you're trying to, you make the content for the people. And then once you get your head round, you make the content for the people. And every person's selfish. So they're just thinking about themselves. And they either want to be entertained, educated, inspired, or they want to connect with their friends. And there's 4 things they want to do. And once you get your head around that and who your audience member is, like what I did a YouTube video about it, understand who your ideal audience member is. As an artist, as a DJ, what are they into? And once you write down those lists, you start making content for the people.
Yeah.
And then it makes it a lot easier, to be honest, because you start thinking, well, what would that person like to see? A lot of the time it's new music. A lot of the time it's them DJing. A lot of the time it's, like you say, a little bit of live stuff. And that's up to you whether you allow that.
Yeah.
I went through a phase of my daughter, like a lot of the family stuff was in it, but now I try to keep a lot of it out of it.
Yeah.
Especially as my daughter's getting older and, she's taking her own little ventures into social media, and
of course
she started a YouTube channel, which is hilarious.
Love that.
She comes to home and she said, oh, can I have a YouTube channel? And I was like, don't know. Like she said, none of my friends are allowed them. And I was like, don't know, Willow. It's not like we've got a studio at the bottom of the garden you could record videos. It's not like I've got a channel and could help you really get yours going.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she was like, Dad, you have got a studio at the bottom of the garden. You do have a channel and you do have done all courses on it. And she was like, does this mean I can have one? And I was like, yeah, why not?
That's amazing. So what does she do on a YouTube channel?
So she started it as a drawing thing. So she started doing drawing and she just draws. So her face isn't in it. She just was doing drawing. Now she's kind of turned into these, because she's got a bit older, and she put up some YouTube shorts and she had 19 followers and she got 1,500 views on 19 followers.
That's amazing.
On a YouTube short. And 1,500 followers to 1,500 views to a 10-year-old is like you've become Mr. Beast.
Of course.
And there was a lot of running around the house screaming that she would become a YouTuber because she'd had 1,500 views and she was going to be rich.
Yeah.
And she was the next Mr. Beast. Which is hilarious. And now she's getting into the kind of trends and sounds, and she's becoming very aware of music and more so, like we've taken her to festivals since she was 6 months old. And she loves going to festivals. She always goes on the main, manages to get on the main stage now. And where I'm not allowed to go up there, she'll be up there going, like, she'll come down and go, I went up on the main stage, Dad, and you're not allowed up there. And I'm like,
cheers.
Right, cool.
Yeah.
And even like, so, and it's like, there's a festival in Worcester called Nostock, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's 5,000 people. And we go there every year as a family. And people, she met Molly Collins, the drum and bass artist, a few years ago. And she was maybe 6 then, and they were playing about backstage, running around, having races. And Molly was so lovely with her, and she gave her a hat. And then this year, last year she was playing again, and we went backstage because Willow wanted to see if Molly was there, and she recognised her straight away, which is amazing. And then Molly took her up on the stage, and again I wasn't allowed to come, which Willow found absolutely. And she was allowed to dance on stage with Molly to drum and bass in front of like thousands of people, which she absolutely loved.
Love that. That's great. So she's going to be a famous YouTuber.
Well, she'll be what she is. But do you know what I find? Like, I find there's a lot of things with social media, and I think about it a lot with younger kids. There's a lot of negative, obviously, and there's a lot of brain, and kids are going to be on computers, and there's a lot. They're going to be using phones, and they're going to be using media, and they're going to be, and then her trying this stuff now and learning this stuff and learning what works, and me being a kind of protective and locking down things and making sure that the harmful world can't get to her from a computer world and a social media world, but being aware that I know how to do that, but allowing her some rope to go and experiment and kind of go, this is where you make all the mistakes, and this is where you learn all the what works with social media. And I remember coming out of school, and she was talking to friends about, and they all had like different number of views, and they were like, and they were trying to understand what was working and what wasn't working. It was lovely to see, like, from really, really basic level, that's what you need to do from social media. You test and you try and you understand what works. And this is what a lot of people miss. They post and go, well, that didn't work, and take it down. Yeah. Or I look stupid and that didn't work, and take it down. And what you really need to do is go, well, why didn't it work? Yeah. What did work? And what do people like? And if I was looking at this from an average consumer, would I swipe or would I watch it? And be honest with it, because if it is rubbish, that's cool. Just make it 1% better.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's a business at the end of the day, and I think if you do anything in business, you evaluate why it doesn't work or why it did work, and then if it did work, then let's double down on it. And if it did, the same
with creative.
Yeah, it is exactly the same. So I think it's just about consistency. For me, my view is consistency, and it's just constantly trying new things. And also some things, what you think's going to work really well doesn't, because it's overthought.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you'll put a picture of you with a fucking dog, and everyone will love it, and it's game over. And you just never know to a certain extent, and sometimes it is a frustrating world, but yeah. So
so data transmission is going that, like, the education part is a massive part of it, but still for us, every single thing is still find new artists. Yeah. Still find the newest artists. Like, I've written about so many people. I remember meeting Solado before they announced their first records. This was a long time ago. And I remember we actually sat down. They brought me a USB, and I sat and listened to records and got behind the projects, and it's those sort of people where you've gone on those long journeys and found them, written about them first, and found them. And I always like looking at the third tier of lineups. Who is on the third tier of a lineup? I'm going to go and find out who all those people are, and listen to their mixes and their music, because in 3 years' time or 5 years' time, that'll be the new person that pops, you know. And I want to write about those people on data transmission first, because I can do. Same like last year, I got an email from a publicist saying, there's a new artist, and I'd love you to cover him. I'd love you to get involved, because he's sort of making some waves, and he's called John Summit, and he's and I literally replied to them with a link to our search where I'd searched John Summit on data transmission. And I'd been writing about him since 2015. Yeah. And I was like, I think I'm aware of him. And I like being that person. I like being cocky about it. And I like because I have done the research, and I have dug, and I've found the people that are on the third line. So if you're on the third tier of the lineups, then my DMs are always open.
Probably on data transmission as well.
You might be on there. Come on. If you're on a third tier of a lineup, I wanna know who you are.
Definitely, man. So how do people get involved in the community of data transmission?
So the DT community is like again, it's SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify. They're the main channels. So we like talking about music. We love talking about. In fact, we love talking about music. Let's rephrase that. I love talking about music. I love listening to music. My always question is, what artists you listening to now? Who's on your list this year? Who do you like this year? Who do I like this year? So SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, they're the big ones. But also there's still the website. Like still put it on there. My channels are me, Grahame Farmer, and it's all about social media growth. And my YouTube channel is, like I said, now 3 videos a week, all on social media growth. This week's videos have been, if you've got a mix.
This isn't coming out this week, so this is coming out in the future. Cool. So go check it out if you're watching.
Yeah. So there's a load of content this as an example. Then for this week's content is around getting more listeners on your mixes, and also how many posts should you post on Instagram. So they're the kind of things we look at as a rough example, or how to get more streams on Spotify. Those are the sort of things I look at on YouTube. But Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Discord is always open for new producers and new DJs, and come and share some music and give some feedback and be part of those because they're great fun.
Amazing. Mate, thanks so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And
thank you.
And it's been really nice to kind of learn about the history and learn about the evolution of data transmission.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for all the support over the years, man, as well. I really appreciate it. It's been amazing. And yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Who are you into this year? Who are you liking this year from an artist point of view? That's always my question.
I've signed a guy called Dalton Taylor on the label this year, who is popping off in New York. He's like, I'm really fortunate that I come across a lot of like local DJs over like through touring. And I got introduced to Dalton through a friend that he wasn't really DJing. He was super into music, but he wasn't really DJing. Or maybe he was, he just kept it very DL. And then I became friendly with him. And just kind of, he then like sent me a record, and I had this like perception of the music that he was going to be like, he was going to write. And it was completely wrong.
No way.
And then I was like, wow, this is actually really interesting. And damn, like you can actually produce like pretty well. And then he sent me like he sent me a record, and I was like, fuck, this is great. I really want to sign this. But I was like, I can't just sign one record. I want to sign a couple of records because I want to know that there's a consistency in you as the artist. Like my label is not a label where we're just putting out music every week of different artists. It's like, it's 4 artists in total on the label.
Oh man, I'm the same. I'm going to spend money on these releases. I want the consistency, and I'm going to spend money investing in you. I want to hear a record, but I want to they're the same. I want totally. At least 3 EPs, and I want to put them over a year and a bit.
Totally. So anyway, like a couple of weeks later, he sent me another record. And yeah, I'm just like, this is fucking great. And it's just exactly what I was looking for the label that I haven't had yet. Because I get sent a lot of stuff. I'm sure it's the same for you. It's like you get sent a lot of stuff for what people think you want, or they don't even listen to what you're putting out.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it's like, guys, this is nowhere near where I want. But also I respect it because I was that artist before. I was that artist sending stuff to labels that I had zero clue what they were looking for and thought they wanted this, and they actually didn't. So Dalton Taylor, there's also a girl from New York but lives in Philly called Quarter. She's just been on the podcast.
Nice.
Her actual name's Megan, but she's doing really interesting stuff. It's QRTR. QRTR. It was really naive of me. Like, I've known her for a few years. She played a show with me. And I never really like took the time to listen to her music. It was always like she's a cool girl. She's popping off, like doing little things here and there in New York. Like, and then I was like, oh, she's got a cool agent now. I know her agent personally as a kind of mate. And I was like, cool. Like, and then I got asked if she wanted to come on the podcast, and I was like, yeah, cool. I'd love to like sit down. And I was like, damn, I need to just go and like actually do some research and spend some time listening to her music because I hadn't. And I literally spent like half an hour before the podcast, and I was like, damn, this girl's released like 2 albums, like actual albums, and the music's unbelievable. And I was like, I had to apologize to her because I was like, I haven't given you the time of day that I should have. But now I'm in for forever because the albums are great. And yeah, I think there's also an artist that I've signed to the label called Nassim, who's a French Israeli producer.
Nice.
And he's extremely talented. And that's the thing with the label is I'm not releasing much at all, but I want to release artists that don't sound like anybody else, and that I can create a crew in the label where we can be all parts of a club night.
Nice.
So Nassim makes way more like organic-y, tribally songs, really weird stuff. DeBasque, who's on the label, who's like a good mate and just makes amazing music. Now we have Dalton, and I'm really looking for some females to come on. Just need to find the right person that's like wants to be on the label and also is making the music that I really dig with as well. So that's the next goal for my stuff.
That's cool.
For releasing. But yeah, check out those 3 artists.
Will do.
Well, also you probably can't check out those 3 artists because they haven't released music. Well, apart from Quarter. Nassim has and Quarter have, but
it's nice to have a name on the radar that if you start getting an email, you go, oh yeah, I had that conversation.
Yeah.
So that's more the thing.
Yeah, there's some great people out there that, like I'm really into that whole building a crew and everyone everyone winning from one thing.
Me too. Sorry, I bamboozled at the end of your podcast.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm here for it.
I literally have been saying to myself all the way through, like, don't go into interview mode because I'm so used to being in the interviewer, not turn into the interviewer. Just
no, I get it, man. That's what I like. It's real conversations. Like that's what it's about. I don't really ever look at this podcast as an interview. I find it's like more of like just a conversation because most of the people on the podcast I know and have known. Like I've known you for years. Yeah, so it's. I enjoy doing it, man. I enjoy doing it. It's great to have a conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. How can people follow you? What are all the handles and stuff like that? And
just at Grahame Farmer, Grahame Farmer, FAIMER, and then just at Data Transmission, same as it's always been. Awesome. Yeah, just search Data Transmission, Grahame Farmer.
Keep it up, man. Big love, and I'll catch you soon.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap. Big love to Grahame for coming on. Keep safe, people. Thanks for listening. Please share. See you soon.